Good morning, students. In the first session, we have learned that Griffin is now staying in a village called Iping. Okay, he had booked 2 rooms in the local inn, and the innkeeper was Mr. and Mrs. Hall. Okay, now he had paid in advance since he had money that he robbed from that shopkeeper in the Drury Lane, and his appearance was quite unusual. So and people obviously becomes quite anxious to know about him. They were curious, and even Mrs. Hall tried to be friendly with him, but he did not encourage any sort of conversation. So he flatly told Mrs. Hall that he wanted to live in isolation. He doesn't want any company. Anyway, that's why. And since he had already paid in advance for a few days, that's why Mrs. Hall decided that he should be led the way he wanted to live there. Well, shortly, after a few days, Griffin was short of money. Okay, he didn't have any cash left. Okay, and he kept telling Mrs. Hall that he was waiting for a check to arrive. And it was a lie actually. So he robbed, the local clergyman house. Okay, he took away the housekeeping money from the clergyman. Of course, the clergyman and his wife, they were sleeping upstairs actually. They heard him taking away the money, but they couldn't prevent him from taking away the money because they couldn't see him. Okay, of course they could hear somebody is making noise inside the room. They even opened the door. Okay, but they could not catch him. Okay, because he was invisible. Anyway, extraordinary affair. The clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day. So extraordinary means very unusual affair. Okay, how can his housekeeping money disappear? Okay, that's why he kept himself. Of course, it was a robbery sort of, but they couldn't see who had taken the money. Okay, anyway, but it was not as extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. Okay, the landlord and his wife were up very early, Mr. and Mrs. Hall, and were surprised to see the scientist's door wide open. Okay, for the first time, they could see the door of that particular room where Griffin was staying open. So usually it was shut and locked, and he was furious if anyone entered his room. So nobody enters his room because he didn't like anybody to meet him. Okay, he becomes quite angry, furious. The opportunity seemed too good to be missed. So out of curiosity, so now they got the opportunity they wanted to see actually what he does inside the room. Okay, and what is there inside the room. Okay, they peeped around the door, saw nobody, and decided to investigate. Okay, when they peeped, through the open door, they could see nobody inside the room. So they decided to go inside the room and investigate. Okay, the bedclothes were cold, showing that the scientist must have been up for some time. Okay, so when somebody recently get up from the bed, the bed sheet remains warm. Okay, so the cold here indicate that Griffin had been up for some time. And stranger still, the cloths and bandages that he always wore were lying about the room. So his cloths, his bandages, all those things are lying there. It means Griffin was not wearing those things. So he is naked sort of, and that's why he is invisible. Okay, he is there in the room, but Mr. and Mrs. Hall, they couldn't see him. All of a sudden, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff. Okay, sniff means when you draw out air from your nose. Okay, that is called sniff, close to her ear. A moment later, the hat on the bedpost leapt up and dashed itself into her face. Then the bedroom chair became alive. Now you see, everything was being done by the stranger. Okay, it means the Griffin, but they couldn't see him. Who is holding those chair, those hat? So they were, Mrs. Hall and Mr. Hall. They were just thinking that, those chair, the hat, they were behaving, they were acting like that by themselves. Okay, springing into air, it shot straight at her legs foremost. It means, the chair is just, it seemed that the chair is, coming forward as if it tried to attack her. Got it? As she and her husband turned away in terror, the extraordinary chair pushed them both. It means Griffin is pushing the chair. But since they couldn't see him, they thought that the chair itself is pushing them out of the room. And then appeared to slam and lock the door after them. And the door was slammed, closed. Slammed in when you, close a door violently. That is called slam the door. And actually the door itself was not slammed. Okay, it was slammed by the invisible man. Okay, the scientist Griffin. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in hysteric when you are overwhelmed by emotions. Okay, whether it is fear or terror, grief, etc. She was convinced that the room was haunted by spirits, and she thought, since she had no idea that a person can be invisible, and he was still there and he was doing all those things, he thought that some ghost was there. Okay, that's why he thought that the room was haunted. By the spirits I mean ghosts, and that the stranger had somehow caused this to enter into her furniture. And she thought that the stranger was responsible for all those things, responsible why her furniture, is behaving like weird way. Okay, she caused those spirits to enter her furniture. My poor mother used to sit on that chair. She moaned. To think it should rise up against me now. Now you see, she thought that the very chair where her mother used to sit is pushing her away from the room. Okay, that's why she was moaning. The feeling among the neighbors was that the trouble was caused by witchcraft. Witchcraft is black magic. Okay, and they thought that he is maybe a practitioner of black magic. But witchcraft or not, whatever be the cause, when news of the burglary at the clergyman's home became known, the strange scientist was strongly suspected of having a hand in it. Somehow, the neighbors, the villagers, connected the stranger. You see, the Griffin was a stranger for them. Okay, they knew, they didn't know who he really was, from where he actually coming, from where he lived. Okay, that's why he was a stranger. Okay, and they thought the Griffin was somehow connected to the burglary. Okay, was strongly suspected of having a hand in it. Suspicion grew even stronger when he suddenly produced some ready case. Now he was, all along he was saying that I don't have any cash and left with me, and I'm waiting for said to arrive. But now suddenly he produced some ready cash, though he had admitted not so long ago before that he had no money. So from where he got the money? So people, the villagers, they naturally become suspicious. The village constable was secretly sent for. That's why they, sent for, reported the incident to the village constable. Instead of waiting for the constable, Mrs. Hall went to the scientist. Okay, the constable was about to arrive, but Mrs. Hall was eager, okay, to face him. Okay, he went directly to the room, and Mrs. Hall, okay, who had somehow mysteriously appeared from his empty bedroom. You see, a little while ago there was nobody. Now, you see, Griffin was there. How he could appear so mysteriously? That's why Mrs. Hall went to face him. I want to know what you have been doing to my shares of shares. Okay, she demanded. So, what you have done to my shares? And I want to know how it is you came out of an empty room and how you entered the locked room. Okay, so obviously, you see, Griffin was already there, but since he is not wearing his clothes, Mr. and Mrs. Hall couldn't see him when they were inside the room. Now, Mrs. Hall was demanding, how could you enter a locked room? Okay, the scientist was always quick-tempered. Griffin was quite quick-tempered. Now he became furious. You don't understand who or what I am, he shouted. Okay, instead of giving sort of an explanation, he became quite furious and he was threatening Mrs. Hall. He said that you don't understand who I am, what I am capable of doing. Very well, he shouted, very well, I will show you. I will show you who I am and what I can do. Suddenly he threw off his bandages. It means the wrap around his empty face, whiskers, spectacles and even nose. It took him only a minute to do this. The horrified people in the bar found themselves staring at the headless man, a person without a head, because he had since unwrapped the bandages. It becomes empty. That space becomes empty. Mr. Jeffers, the constable, okay, by then, in the meantime, Mr. Jeffers, the name of the constable was Mrs. Jeffers, he arrived and was quite surprised to find that he had to arrest a man without a head. Okay, you see, till then, Griffin was wearing his shirt, trousers, etc. So that part of his body is visible. Now since he had, removed his bandage, all these things he's wearing on his face, spectacles, etc. So that part is becomes empty sort of. So he becomes a headless sort of man. So the constable he was surprised when he find a headless man was there, and he had to arrest him. But Jeffers was not easily prevented from doing his duty. If a magistrate's warrant ordered a person arrest, so he had already had a warrant, sort of a permission. Okay, he had a written document to arrest him. So he had to arrest him. This is his duty. Then that person had to be arrested with or without his head. So it doesn't matter whether he had a head or not. According to Jeffers, he had to be arrested. There followed a remarkable scene, sort of a confusion. The policeman tried to get hold of a man who was becoming more and more invisible. It means he was removing his clothes one by one. As he threw up one garment after another, finally a shirt flew into the air. So he has now removed his shirt. And the constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. Now, you see, of course, the constable could feel him, his body, but he couldn't see him. Some people tried to help him, but found themselves hit by blows that seemed to come from nowhere. Now you see there were so many people in the bar, in that particular inn, but all of them were helpless because they couldn't help the constable against an invisible man. Got it? And whenever they tried to help him, they got blows. That seemed to come from nowhere. Okay, they couldn't see who was, hitting them. In the end, Zephyrus was knocked unconscious as he made the last attempt to hold on to the unseen scientist. Now, since Zephyrus, he tried his best to, arrest him, to hold him, but since he couldn't see him, he couldn't know from which direction he is getting the blows. Okay, so ultimately he got unconscious. Okay, he became unconscious by the blows. Okay, the stranger, the griffin was hitting him, and in return, the constable was doing nothing. Okay, couldn't do anything because he couldn't see anybody. Now the constable became unconscious. Okay, he fell on the ground. There were nervous, excited cries of "Hold him!" Everybody was, crying. Calling each other to hold him. But this was easier said than done. But you can say it, but you can't do it practically because you can't, hold a invisible man. Griffin had shaken himself free. Now, he could, get himself free from those people. Okay, and no one knew where to lay hand on him, and he escaped from that particular place. You see, that is the end of the story. Now, in this story, we have a protagonist who is a brilliant person. He was a gifted person who was a scientist who, for years, was trying to find sort of a drug that can make human body transparent. And at last, he became, successful in his effort. But he may be a brilliant scientist, but he is not at all a good human being. Okay, he was quite lawless. That's why the first thing he did after becoming invisible is to set fire his own rented house, since he had some sort of dispute with his landlord. Okay, after that he flew, and in order to become invisible, he had to remove his clothes, and he had to walk, with his bare body, with his naked body in a London winter. You see, in that particular season, that's why he was feeling very cold, and in search of warmth, he entered, took shelter in a departmental store, and he stayed there overnight. In the morning, as the assistants, the employees of that particular department store started arriving, he had to flee from that place also. And of course, you see, the assistants they tried to seize him, but they couldn't do it, since he was, gradually he made himself invisible. Then he went to a store where materials that are used for theater, are sold. From there he got his everything for his disguise. He wrapped his face in bandage. He took a false, nose. He wore whisker, sort of, black glass, hat, etc. So somehow he could give himself a human shape. Okay. So then he decided that he could not afford to live any longer in a crowded place like London. That's why he decided to go somewhere which is quite isolated, sort of lonely place. So he took train and went to a village called Iping. Okay, and he booked 2 rooms for himself in a local inn. You see, the innkeepers were Mr. and Mrs. Hall, but everybody was surprised to find a tourist in that unusual time, unusual season. Nobody venture out in bitter cold in winters in European countries actually. So that was not the season, but still he was there. He was staying in that particular hotel inn, and he made it very clear as soon as he arrived here that he didn't want to talk with anybody. Okay, and he need complete isolation, and of course he had to give sort of an explanation why he is wearing that peculiar sort of weird dress. Okay, he told them that he had some sort of an accident, that's why he had to wear the bandages. And you see, at the time of he also robbed the shopkeeper in the Drury Lane, so he had some money, so he paid in advance for some days, and he started staying there. Very soon he found himself short of money, and he had to pay regularly for his staying, for his lodging in the inn. He told them that he was expecting a ship to arrive, and he had no ready cash. Okay, that was his excuse. Okay, well, he decided to rob the local clergyman. Of course, the clergyman heard that somebody is there in the study, in his sort of personal library. But of course, he, along with his wife, also came to the study and to caught the thief. Okay, but they could hear the money being taken, but the noise, but that they could see nobody. That was quite extraordinary affairs. And later in the morning, on that particular day, at the inn, when Mr. and Mrs. Hall found the door of the room where Griffin was staying open, out of curiosity they went there, and they found that quite extraordinary again. They were chased away from that room by the furniture, okay, by the chair, and okay, they could see nothing. And Mrs. Hall thought that the room was haunted actually. Some spirit started, staying there. Okay, and they thought that it was the stranger who caused all those, spirit enter into the furniture. Anyway, you see, the news of the burglary spread in the neighborhood, and the villagers, they suspected that somehow Griffin himself was connected with the burglary. Okay, and their suspicion became stronger when so far Griffin was saying that I don't have money, but now he could produce some ready money to pay the rent. They become quite suspicious. They thought from where now Griffin could get all this money. Anyway, when Griffin showed himself, in the room, when Mrs. Hall saw him in the room, he went straight to him to ask him face to face from where he came suddenly, and how could he enter a locked room, all those things. And when he was searched this way, he became quite infuriated, quite angry, sort of. And he was threatening that you don't understand who I am and what I am capable of doing. Okay, saying so, he started removing his clothes one by one. Suddenly, when he removed his bandage, his hat, his whiskers, or his glass, he became a headless person. In the meantime, the villagers also informed the constable. He had a warrant to arrest invisible man, okay, the Griffin, and the constable arrived at the spot. He tried to arrest him, but Griffin started removing his clothes one by one, and everybody was trying to grab him, but they were helpless because by now, Griffin was almost absolutely invisible. Okay, and he even hit the constable and made him unconscious. So in the confusion, since nobody can see him, the Griffin could at last escape from that particular place. So that is the story actually. Now we see what is, you can say, sort of a moral here, that a person may be brilliant, a person may be quite intelligent, and but it doesn't mean that he is also a very good person. Okay, a brilliant person can also be a bad person, a lawless person. Got it? And here in 1897, this particular story was written. H.G. Wells also showed that the science can be used against the interest of the society. Okay, you are inventing something, that doesn't mean that it automatically will be used for the betterment of society. Okay, a science can be used for and against the society. Okay, it is the person that matters actually. Got it? The invention is a marvelous sort of, extraordinary sort of invention, a historic sort of invention. According, when somebody actually invents such a drug, it is quite an extraordinary invention. But the way that invention is, used, it is, you can say, nobody can, appreciate sort of, call it good use of science. Got it? So science is a tool of a human being, and it is most important that human beings should be good. Okay, his mentality should be good. Okay, in order to get benefit from the discoveries of science. Okay. Anyway, I will provide a note. Of the important points, or note about on important questions. Okay. Till then. Okay.